In December 1999, RadioShack stock closed at $117.75 a share. The company operated more than 8,000 stores across 30 countries, employed over 40,000 people, and generated $4.13 billion in annual revenue. By its own estimates, 94% of Americans lived or worked within 5 minutes of a Radio Shack. Millions carried a Battery of the Month Club card in their wallets, a simple piece of cardboard that earned them one free Enercell battery every month just for walking through the door. On February 2nd, 2015, that same stock traded for just 9 cents. Days later, Radio Shack filed for bankruptcy. The company was delisted, its assets sold at auction for just $26.2 million, and one of America's most recognizable retail brands became little more than a trademark. This is the story of everything that happened between those two numbers. You're watching American Electronics and Tech, where we uncover the companies that built the modern electronic world, from the engineers behind the circuit boards to the businesses that changed everyday life. If you enjoy deeply researched stories about technology, innovation, and the rise and fall of iconic companies, subscribe and turn on notifications because this journey spans nearly a century, and the ending happened faster than almost anyone imagined. The story begins not in Texas, but beneath the streets of Boston. In 1921, two brothers from London, Theodore and Milton Deutschman, rented a basement at 46 Brattle Street for $50 a month and opened a small shop selling surplus radio equipment. The space measured roughly 7,000 cubic feet and was packed with vacuum tubes, transformers, coils, antennas, and military surplus components. Their customers were amateur radio operators who built their own equipment at kitchen tables across New England. The name came from employee Bill Halligan, who suggested Radio Shack, inspired by the small wooden room aboard ships where radio equipment was housed. Halligan would later found Hallicrafters. The Deutschman brothers would not enjoy the same success. Despite surviving the Great Depression and launching a successful mail-order catalog in 1939, the business struggled through the post-war decades. By the early 1960s, Radio Shack had grown to only 9 stores, but was drowning in debt. It carried nearly $800,000 in uncollectible accounts and was losing about $4 million every year. No one in Boston could save it. Someone in Fort Worth believed they could. Charles Tandy grew up working in his family's leather business. His father, Dave Tandy, and business partner Norton Hinckley had founded the Hinckley Tandy Leather Company in 1919, supplying shoe repair shops throughout Texas. Charles learned retail from the ground up, expanded the company into hobby crafts after serving in the Navy during World War II, and by the late 1950s controlled more than 100 stores. In 1963, he purchased Radio Shack for approximately $300,000. What he inherited looked hopeless. 9 stores, millions in annual losses, hundreds of thousands in bad debt. Charles Tandy immediately transformed the business. He shut down the expensive catalog operation, slashed unnecessary inventory, replaced costly national brands with profitable private label products, and focused on small neighborhood stores staffed by employees who genuinely understood electronics. His philosophy was simple. We're not looking for the guy who wants to spend his entire paycheck on a sound system. Within 2 years, Radio Shack was profitable. Then it began expanding with extraordinary speed. Every store manager was encouraged to become an owner, tying personal success directly to the store's performance. Then came one of the most brilliant customer loyalty programs in retail history, the Battery of the Month Club. Customers received one free battery every month simply by visiting the store. The battery cost almost nothing. The visit was priceless. Every monthly battery brought customers past shelves filled with resistors, capacitors, speakers, antennas, soldering irons, scanners, and countless gadgets they hadn't planned to buy. From 9 stores in 1963, Radio Shack expanded beyond 130 by 1969. During the Citizens Band radio boom of the 1970s, growth exploded. By the middle of the decade, more than 4,600 stores carried the Radio Shack name. Its realistic brand CB radios dominated the market, and at the height of the craze, CB equipment generated nearly 30% of company revenue. Radio Shack had become America's electronics store. Then everything changed. On November 4th, 1978, Charles Tandy died suddenly of a heart attack at just 60 years old. His longtime friend Philip North stepped in as interim chief executive. North once joked that the only thing he knew about electronics was that the funny end of the battery went into the flashlight first. Fortunately for RadioShack, another revolution had already begun. Not in the boardroom, in a back office. Buyer Don French had purchased a hobby computer kit, assembled it himself, and designed his own prototype at work. Management wasn't impressed. Vice President John Roach wasn't convinced by the prototype either, but he recognized the future. Roach hired 24-year-old engineer Steve Leininger from National Semiconductor, a member of California's legendary Homebrew Computer Club, where Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak were also experimenting with personal computers. Leininger designed the machine. The entire development budget came in below $100,000. When French and Leininger predicted sales of 50,000 computers, RadioShack president Louis Kornfeld laughed, saying his wife would think he had gone crazy if he bought one for Christmas. Roach's response, by his own later admission, was not fit for publication. Charles Tandy authorized production anyway. Just 3,500 machines, one for every store. If they didn't sell, they could always be used for inventory management. On August 3rd, 1977, RadioShack unveiled the TRS-80. For $599.95, customers received a complete computer system with keyboard, monitor, cassette recorder, and 4 kilobytes of memory powered by a Zilog Z80 processor. Within days, more than 15,000 customers attempted to place orders. The company's switchboard collapsed under the demand. 10,000 units sold during the first month. By the end of 1978, the TRS-80 accounted for roughly half of all personal computer sales in the United States, outselling Apple and Commodore combined. Its greatest advantage wasn't the processor. It wasn't the price. It was the stores. Apple had only a handful of dealers. Commodore was still building a retail network. RadioShack already had more than 3,500 locations where customers could walk in, buy a computer, and receive help from someone who could actually explain how to use it. The company expanded the product line rapidly. The Model 2 targeted businesses. The color computer opened the market to families. The Model 3 corrected many of the reliability problems of earlier models. By 1981, RadioShack had become America's dominant personal computer retailer. Yet serious business customers still hesitated to buy computers in the same shop where children purchased remote control cars and hobbyists bought CB radios. John Roach responded by opening dedicated RadioShack computer centers, nearly 500 specialized locations focused entirely on business computing. It worked. By the early 1980s, RadioShack was the largest consumer electronics retailer on Earth, more than 4,300 company-owned stores, more than 2,000 independent dealers, gross profit margins exceeding 50%. 60 employees became millionaires through company stock. The Tandy Center headquarters in Fort Worth symbolized that success with twin office towers connected by an indoor shopping center, an ice rink, and the only privately owned subway system in the United States. RadioShack sold far more than electronics. It sold possibility. Its shelves held realistic stereo systems, shortwave radios, calculators, electronic kits, and rows upon rows of individual components. For countless future engineers, the local RadioShack wasn't simply a shop. It was a classroom, but the seeds of decline had already been planted. The TRS-80 relied on its own closed software ecosystem. Meanwhile, Apple and IBM-compatible computers attracted thousands of independent developers, creating software that ran across multiple platforms. Businesses wanted compatibility. Developers wanted open ecosystems. Customers followed. Enthusiasts even gave the TRS-80 an unfortunate nickname, the Trash 80. In 1983, RadioShack introduced the technically impressive Model 2000. It was roughly 3 times faster than IBM's PC. Yet speed didn't matter. It couldn't run much of IBM's software. The market had already chosen compatibility over performance. By 1993, RadioShack abandoned computer manufacturing altogether, selling its production business to AST Research. At the time, management believed it was simply leaving an increasingly competitive industry. In reality, it was abandoning the technology that had once made the company indispensable. The replacement strategy looked successful at first. Mobile phones. During the 1990s, RadioShack aggressively partnered with Sprint, Singular, and Verizon. By 2005, it sold more mobile phones than Walmart, Circuit City, and Best Buy combined. Revenue looked strong. The identity was disappearing. The famous component drawers shrank. The soldering equipment disappeared. Electronic kits vanished. The hobbyists stopped coming. The children who once learned how electricity worked stopped walking through the doors. The store that had inspired future engineers became another place selling mobile phone contracts. There are two honest ways to judge that decision. From one perspective, management followed the highest margin business available. From another, it abandoned the one thing competitors could never copy. Anyone could sell mobile phones. Only RadioShack had built a nationwide community of makers, inventors, students, and tinkerers. When online retailers arrived and smartphones made dedicated phone stores less relevant, RadioShack no longer had anything unique to offer. It had traded its identity for convenience. Convenience is never exclusive. The collapse accelerated with astonishing speed. 11 consecutive quarterly losses, hundreds of stores closed. Then, in 2006, roughly 400 employees at headquarters received an email informing them that their positions had been eliminated. No meeting, no conversation, just an electronic notice. A management professor at the University of North Texas remarked that he had never heard of so many people being dismissed through email at once. The company Charles Tandy built by making managers feel like owners had become a company that couldn't even tell its employees goodbye face to face. The stock continued falling. Debt kept growing. Customers kept disappearing. On February 5th, 2015, RadioShack filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. Nearly 1,800 stores were immediately marked for closure. A hedge fund subsidiary called General Wireless purchased the company's assets for just $26.2 million. 2 years later, RadioShack filed for bankruptcy again. The business that had once operated more than 8,000 stores worldwide and generated billions in annual revenue was worth less than many individual commercial buildings. The company disappeared. The name survived. Today, working TRS-80 computers still boot inside collectors' workshops. Retro computing enthusiasts continue writing new software for the Z80 processor nearly 50 years after Steve Leininger selected it. Vintage realistic Minimus 7 speakers often sell for more than their original retail price. Every RadioShack catalog dating back to 1939 has been digitally preserved online. The Tandy Center towers still stand in downtown Fort Worth, now renamed City Place. The RadioShack logo has vanished from the glass. Only a handful of franchise stores remain. The brand now belongs to the Unicomer Group of El Salvador and survives primarily as an online retailer. But the company's true legacy was never its buildings. It was the people it inspired. Every engineer who learned to solder beneath a RadioShack magnifying lamp still carries a small part of that store. Somewhere inside an old kitchen drawer, tucked behind forgotten receipts and expired membership cards, there is probably still a Battery of the Month club card. Worthless as a coupon, priceless as a memory. It represents something that no algorithm, warehouse, or two-day delivery promise has ever replaced. A neighborhood store where someone knew your name, a place that stocked the exact part you needed, a counter where curiosity was always welcome. RadioShack didn't lose to the future. It helped build the future. It trained its engineers, it stocked their workbenches, it gave them free batteries every month. Then one day, the future stopped coming back. If RadioShack was part of your life, tell us your story in the comments. What city was your local store in? What was the first thing you bought there? Do you still have it? And does it still work? And if you enjoy deeply researched stories about the companies that built modern technology, subscribe now. There are many more remarkable stories still to come, and trust me, the next one is just as unforgettable.